Today we are talking about Wi-Fi, and in this video we're going to take a look at how we can get the best possible performance from our Wi-Fi network by making sure it's not being interfered with and it's on the correct channel. Now to do this we're going to use this device here called the Wi-Spy DBX alongside some software called Channelizer from Metageek. Now the Wi-Spy DBX is a Wi-Fi channel analyzer. It's not just a standard Wi-Fi adapter, it actually allows you to analyze both the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi frequency bands to check for anything that could be interfering with your devices. Now, not only will this device pick up things like laptops and smartphones, but it will also pick up any device in that band that could be causing interference, including things like wireless CCTV cameras and drones. So what we're going to do is take a closer look at this device itself, show you the software, and then I'm going to walk you through how you can actually use this to get the best possible performance out of your home Wi-Fi network. Now, just before we take a closer look at the hardware, I just want to say Metageek have sent me this over to have a look at. I have not been sponsored to make this video, I am not paid to make this video, but I did just want to make it clear that they have very kindly lent this to me to be able to show you guys how this actually works. I'm also going to be making a number of other videos with this device showing you how the wireless system on many popular drones works, and if you're interested in that, please do subscribe to the channel and you will see videos on that come out in the near future. Anyway, first of all, let's take a closer look at the Wi-Spy DBX itself. When you first open the box, you'll find that the Wi-Spy DBX from Metageek comes in this nice hard carry case. Upon opening the case, inside you'll find everything you need to get up and running. The USB cable, which is a mini USB to a normal USB-A. Then there is a plastic clip for attaching the Wi-Spy DBX to the back of your display on your laptop. You then have a card which gives you the information about the hardware as well as some information about the regulations on the back. You then have the Wi-Spy DBX module itself, as well as the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz antenna. Taking a closer look at the Wi-Spy DBX adapter itself, it's very similar in shape and size to an external Wi-Fi adapter. On the back, you will find a mini USB port for connecting it to the computer, and on the other side, you will find the SMA connector for the antenna. Setting the device up is very easy. You simply screw the antenna on the one side and then plug in the mini USB cable into the back and then the USB-A into a free USB port on your computer. Now, alongside the Wi-Spy DBX, there's also a Wi-Spy Air, which is a Wi-Fi version designed to be used with iOS and Android devices. And rather than connect it up to your PC, you can use it on your smartphone or tablet. However, we've got the USB one here today, so we're going to use this. Now, the next thing we need to do is plug it into the USB. I'm using my Mac here with Windows installed already. And what we're going to do is actually open the software that they make as well, which is called Channelizer. Now, you can purchase the Wi-Spy DBX or the Wi-Spy Air on its own, or with the Channelizer software as well, depending on what you actually want to do with it. Now, Channelizer can actually be used on its own with your device without the Wi-Spy device. However, when using it with a PC or laptop with Wi-Fi built in, it is only able to see the standard network information. It is not able to do the full spectrum analysis on the Wi-Fi network like this device is. So whilst you can use it without the hardware, it's recommended that you should always use it with it. Now, just taking a closer look at the software itself, we're going to open up Channelizer and I'm going to show you guys how it actually looks in use and walk you through the basic features. Now Channelizer is opened up, you can see that we've got it on the main display. Now the first thing you want to do when you do turn it on is just make sure that it is showing that your device is connected. To do this, you click on Wi-Spy at the top and there it gives you the options for actually setting what mode you want as well as what it displays, whether it be frequency or channels, and we'll walk through that in a minute. Now just giving you a quick overview of what you're seeing on the display. This big area in the middle here is the main display of the spectrum that we're seeing of the Wi-Fi band. So we're currently looking at 2.4 gigahertz as it shows up here, and we're seeing that full radio spectrum of that band being shown from 2405 to 2490. Now if I go up to WiSpy and actually go across to view and change it to Wi-Fi channels, that will actually display the channel numbers rather than the frequency. Now what this display will do is show various ways of displaying the data. For instance, I currently have current and density shown. Now what current is all of these little red spikes that are appearing and disappearing, and that is all the individual wireless interference and networks that are being picked up by the device. The background colouring you can see from the blue to the red is the density display. The longer a device is transmitting on a specific part, the more it will show on the density display. So for instance, if we look at this spike here, we can see the red trail is showing around it and it isn't moving. It is simply staying static. Therefore, the density display is absolutely solid. Now, if I turn off the density display, you can actually see it a bit better, and you can see that these two devices are staying pretty much on all of the time, and that's why in the density view, they're staying a nice hard red. The devices that are bouncing around and very short bursts of radio traffic are what are leaving these blue streaks in the background. Now, if we scroll further down, here we have a waterfall effect, and this is showing that same thing from above, but more as a waterfall as the radio information is coming in, and it's showing it as a history. And that is the same on this area here. This is a history display of what we're seeing happen in real time here, and this adjusts the density display, so how long in time the density is actually being shown on the display, and I'll show that a little bit more later on. Now, moving down to the bottom here, if I scroll up a little bit just to make this a little bit easier to see, it's showing the Wi-Fi networks, and this is showing all of the networks that are being picked up. Now, the way this software works is it uses the WiSpy DBX to do the actual frequency scanning and displaying on the spectrum, but it uses the internal Wi-Fi on the device to actually detect the networks. So you do really need to be using this on a device with built-in Wi-Fi, that it is able to actually detect the networks and then display them via the WiSpy device on the top. Now, looking down, you can see there are 4 networks being shown. 2 of these are mine, which is these top 2, and then we've got these other 2 networks showing below. Now, there's a nice feature on this which will allow us to see where our network is, and we'll show that up in a minute. We can see, moving along, we can see it's on channel 11, which is my 2.4 one, which is actually up here. And if you look, you can see this image of the blue background as a hump. Now that is actually my Wi-Fi network. The reason it is a blue hump and not a red one is because there's nothing being transferred at the moment. There is no data moving through the network, therefore all of the little individual packets of data are building that hump of the network, but we're not seeing the actual network itself. Now, what I will do in a second is actually show you what happens when the network properly kicks in and we transfer, say, a large file, and you will see the effect that has on showing you the network on the display. You can then see that we're showing the signal strength, the BSSID count, security protocol, max data rate, vendor, and the Wi-Fi standard. Now, along the top down here, there are various bits of information. You've got the instructions, which you can select on there, the kinds of devices that could be causing interference, and we'll take a look at this a little bit more in a minute. The channels display showing you all of the channels and what's being detected. Network graph, network table, which we were on before. Percentage of utilization, again, showing what is actually being used the most, like these 2 solid networks here. Device settings, markers, and notes. Now, as I've said, my network that we're currently on this one, on 2.4, is the G100ST. Now, if we click this little box here, you will see that it will actually put a box around the display on this network showing us where my Wi-Fi network is. Now, as I just said, you can't actually see it very well because it isn't transmitting any data. But if I just turn this off a moment and show you when my network is actually transferring data, you'll see the image change and you'll actually see it begin to fill the density just like this here. And rather than have all of these peaks going up and down, you'll see the network itself. So if we just tell it to start transferring some data, you can see that the transfer has begun and you can see the change in the behavior of this area on the network, and you can see it beginning to actually change color as the data is being transferred. So if I just turn off the current display a minute, you'll actually see the network density begin to fill up because I'm doing a large file transfer. And now if I turn on that image over the top of the network again, you will actually see my network begin to fill that space and actually show us where the network is placed on the band. Now, it is always worth noting when you're using something like this, it does need to be able to see the data transfer for you to be able to see the network traffic on the density display. And again, if I turn the current display back on, you can see that the information is still moving around, but it's a much larger block of data being moved than what we were getting before. And if I turn the density display off, you can see. Now, one really nice feature of this software is how it allows you to identify what the kind of network is. Now, as I showed, we can actually put the block over where mine is to turn it on and off. But if we go under interference, we can scroll down and they've got various shapes here that allow you to have a look at how the network is. So for instance, if we go down and we go 40 megahertz network, which is that one there, if you click on it, it will actually put a display up over the top of it so you can actually see what the network looks like. And that one there is very similar in shape to mine, and that is a 40 megahertz network. If we scroll down and go to 11 GMB, and as you can see, oh, that one there, so it actually allows us to identify the kind of network from the image that's being displayed. So that's a really nice feature of the software. Now, the nice and the best thing about this software is that it allows you to start looking at where your network is in relation to the other networks around you. So for instance, if I turn the display on my network, we will see that one is here. And if we start looking at what other networks are around me, we can see them down here. There's another network right literally on the same bandwidth as mine. And then if we turn that one on there, we can see that that one is on there next to it. Now, if I just stop this file transfer a second, we'll begin to see that density display fall away, and then we'll actually be able to see the overall band itself without all of the information in, and we can then start looking at all these other networks and see how they could be interfering with ours. Now that the density display is moved away, we can take a closer look at the networks that are showing around me. Now, the interesting thing is that there is actually a network here that is stronger than my own on the same channel as my own. I have all of the networks turned on the 2.4, and you can see that we have this two networks here next to mine, which is the G100ST, and then there's this Netgear 17 network, which is here. Now, if we actually look at it on the display from a signal point of view, this network, the Netgear 17, is actually stronger than my own network, my own G100ST. So we have two networks on the same channel, which is channel 11, and the network that isn't mine is actually stronger than mine. So this is a classic example of how this software could actually help us, because the reality is here, my network is on channel 11 alongside this strong network, and whilst there are two other networks on channel 6, I would be much better having my network on channel 6 because it is much stronger than those networks there compared to this network here, which is Netgear 17, which is very, very strong. So this is a classic example of a nice feature that this software can show you on how to set your network up. So what we're going to do now is actually do a quick change and move my network over to channel 6 and then use that as the channel for it rather than this one here. Now, just before we do that, it's worth talking about this little area over here, because as you can see, there are two quite strong signals here. And let me just put this live again so we can see what is coming in. There we go. These two strong signals here are on the 2.4 gigahertz band, but they are not Wi-Fi. Now, these are two wireless video cameras, and these are being picked up by the Channelizer as well. Now, if you were using your normal Wi-Fi at home, you would not see those two devices showing at all. If you were setting up your channels, you may decide to set your network on channel 3, and you would be right over the top of this device here. So the nice thing about using this software with this device is that you're actually able to see not only Wi-Fi networks, but other devices not related to it, including, as I said, CCTV cameras, wireless doorbells, and anything else that is using this Wi-Fi band. Okay, so as you can see now, I have moved my Wi-Fi network, and you can now see that G100 is on there. It is showing up on channel 6. Now, it's currently showing channel 6 and 11 because there's some historic data, but I've now moved my network over to channel 6, and you can actually see the substantial difference in signal now between my network, which is G100, and this other network, the EE hub, below me. And whilst we are still on the same channel as another Wi-Fi network, we are a much stronger signal, and that Wi-Fi network is not going to give us any problems. Now, the reality is you would ideally want to select a position where there was no other Wi-Fi network. However, in the days we find ourselves in now, that is fairly unlikely. Now, next, switching over to the 5 gigahertz mode. To do this, we simply click on Wi-Fi and click full 5 gigahertz band, and this will show us the 5 gig Wi-Fi networks that are around us, as well as any other devices on 5 gig as well. Now, as we can see at the moment, there isn't really a lot showing on the 5 gig band. We've currently got our network, which is located right down here, and again, because there are no files being transferred on this network, it isn't really showing much. It's basically not displaying. If I put on the current view, you can see that the 5 gig network here is really good. There's very little actually on it. We're only picking up one device on 5 gig, which is the network which is mine. Now, again, if I just show you what it will look like when we do a file transfer and increase the amount of data being transferred on the network, I just need to switch over my other laptop onto 5 gig. Will take 1 second, and then begin a file transfer, and you will then begin to see the data increase, and you will now see a massive change in that display. You can see all of those red spikes now are kicking in, which is all of that data being transferred, and then you will start to see the density display. If I turn off current, you'll start to see that darken up, and that'll actually get, after a period of time, to a dark red display, showing us that that network is active and that there is plenty of data being transferred. Now, again, as I've said with this, it will only really show on the density display when there is active data being transferred. When nothing is being transferred, it won't show. Now, if we look at the waterfalls, you can see that there's clearly a big block of data being transferred here. We can see again on the waterfall display on the side, which is our historic one, we can see that it is clearly showing and that my network is transferring data. Now, here we've got nothing to worry about. There are no other networks in sight. There is nothing potentially on this band that is going to cause us any problems at all or show us anything that we should be concerned about. Now, just to show you the kind of effects other devices can have on your network, I've moved back to 2.4 gigahertz and I've put it on a 1 gigahertz file transfer, and you can see that the whole screen is showing up red because there's a huge amount of data being transferred, and my network is showing that big block in the density display. Now, I'm going to turn on this, which is a Dji Mavic 2 Pro drone. It works on both the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz networks, and I just want to show you the effect this can have on your Wi-Fi network. When there's data on, if for instance, if we turn it on and wait for it to boot up, you will shortly see the actual effect this kind of device can have when using it anywhere near Wi-Fi. It's just booting up. We'll just wait for it to actually kick in. Make sure that it is on the correct band. We're going to put it onto 2.4 now, and you will then see a large signal appear on the left hand side of the display, and you will see that is the main video signal appearing from the drone there. Now you can see it's brought up the actual overall noise floor, and whereas our network before was a nice tall building kind of a shape, now it's very much drowned out amongst all of this noise from the drone. Now, just to show you the same thing on your network when data isn't being transferred, just to show you the overall effect on the noise floor, if I again put it onto 2.4 gigahertz, you will see the signal appear, and you will see that the overall noise floor on the system has increased massively. And whereas our network is located in this area here, it would have a hard time sorry, it's talking to me. Whilst your network would be able to communicate, it would transfer at much slower speeds compared to what it would usually do, simply because of a device like this. As you can see now, we have turned the drone off and I'm no longer transferring data on my network, and whilst it is sitting there, there is nothing really being transferred at all. Now, the interesting thing, as you can see now on the display, is that these two video signals, these two here, have moved. They've moved from down here on the band and they've moved up to here. So whatever those devices are, and I believe these are wireless cameras, they are dynamic and they are moving around depending on what signal. And this one actually is right where my network was before. It's actually shifted location. So whatever they are capable of moving around the band and trying to get the best possible signal themselves. Now, overall, that is the main features of this software. There is a huge amount on this that I haven't touched on yet, including the display you can see there with the inspector, which will show us the actual frequency, but we can change that. We can move the display over to actual frequency as well if we wanted to. You can also look at Bluetooth and Zigbee devices on this as well, and there is a whole set of features that allow you to actually record the data that you're seeing, save it and play it back later. On the large waterfall that we've got over here on the left, we also have the ability here to actually move the bars around and look at specific bits of the data set. So for instance, I can move that down and we can go back. Sorry, I don't want to add a note. We can go back and actually look at the earlier data we were looking at to see how it looks, and have that tiny data to be able to actually look at it in more detail and try to understand what's going on. Or we can simply drag it back to the top and then move back to a real-time data rather than what we were looking in the past. But that waterfall is constantly trotting past on the side. Now that is pretty much it for this first video. I'm going to be making a number of videos on this device showing it in use with Wi-Fi, but as well as other equipment, including these DJI drones and the DJI FPV systems. We're going to take a look at how the wireless system works on them and actually show you some quite interesting things as well. Now, as you've seen in this video, the WiSpy DBX with Channelizer allows you to take a close look at your wireless networks in more detail than you would be able to do without this dedicated hardware and software software solution. Whilst there is software that allows you to see Wi-Fi networks, I would not have been able to see those two wireless cameras without the WiSpy DBX like this. It's well worth considering getting one of these devices if you are someone who is an IT professional working on wireless networks, or you are someone who just wants to get the best out of your network or understand what your 2.4 and 5 gig wireless devices are doing. Now, I will put a link to the WiSpy DBX, the WiSpy Air and Channelizer in the description of this video as well. I want a big thank you to Metageek for actually sending this one over for me to have a play with. It's going to allow me to actually make some really interesting content over the next couple of weeks, and I just want to say a massive thank you to them for actually helping us to be able to do that. Now, that is it for this initial video. I'm really interested in what you think about what you've seen. Please do leave your feedback, your comments and your questions in the question section of this video, and I will answer them as soon as I possibly can. If you found this video useful, also please do consider hitting that subscribe button, give us a like and give us a share as well. Please don't forget to hit the bell, and that way you will get the updates on the new videos that I'm going to be doing on this when they come out as well. Anyway, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. Please stay safe, and I will speak to you again soon.